Welcome. This is episode 2 of the Distraction Pieces podcast with me, Scroobius Pip. Thank you for tuning in. I've got to thank you at the start for the overwhelming reaction to episode 1 with Russell Brand and to the announcement in general, man. It's been a lovely. So thank you all for hyping it and sharing it and liking us and rating us and subscribing and everything else. Thank you very, very much for the support. I didn't mention at the beginning of the last one, which I feel I should have as disclosure, because people often look at the beginning of, or the length of a podcast and go, all right, I'll go for that, it's free. And I forgot to mention that I've got a stutter. So, any length of podcast you should probably reduce by about 4 minutes or so. I guess if it's an hour, that's a decent percentage, because it's, to say it was an hour and 8 minutes, it's probably an hour and 4 minutes of podcast and about 4 minutes of me kind of building up the hype through speech impediment. But yeah, on this week's show, in fact, before I talk about who we got this week's show, I should talk about our sponsors, because we're going to have sponsors to try and keep this free and keep this going for y'all. Our sponsors this week are Speech Development Records, which is my record label, so that was an easy sponsorship to get. But yeah, check us out. We've got people like Sage Francis, who I'm actually on tour with at the moment. I'm recording this in a hotel room. So yeah, we've got Sage Francis, we've got B. Dolan, we've got Warren Peace, we've got Giacomo Brown, we've got Polar Bear, we've got amazing people. So all of whom I'm going to try and get podcasts with at some point along the line. So check us out. And it's also brought to you by Redshift Rebels. And Redshift Rebels are a clothing company who, when they set up, they decided, instead of the guys who set it up had a degree in business, and he looked at the budgets that companies put aside for marketing, and he decided he was going to set his clothing company up and take the marketing budget or percentage and put that into music and arts. So their full marketing budget is putting out records by people and putting on gigs and putting on club nights and spending their money on something positive instead of that weird industry of advertising where they're paying you to say good things. So yeah, check them out. They've got, in fact, they've put out a 25% discount code for all podcast listeners. So if you go to their website and enter the discount code free cheese, that's a reference to one of my lyrics for anyone that's incredibly confused, you'll get 25% off. So yeah, check them out. Redshift Rebels, they're awesome. But on to this week's podcast. We've got Zane Lowe. I was hugely excited to have on the show, and I'm excited for you all to hear this podcast, because I feel Zane is one of the most misunderstood and underrated guys out there, which sounds crazy considering how huge and successful and popular he is, but people don't know about his history, about his skills as just a DJ, about all these different things. Hopefully a lot of that will come across in the podcast. I'm going to stop rambling now, because this isn't what you've tuned in for. Hope you enjoy. I'll be back again at the end with a little bit of information, so hopefully you'll stick around for that. But for now, this is Distraction Pieces podcast, episode 2. Zane Lowe.
This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces.
And we're going.
Delightful.
There we are. Zane Lowe, how are you?
It's a delight to see you, my friend.
It's a delight to have you on. Thank you so much for inviting me into your home.
Yeah,
for this.
cool, man. It's a pleasure.
Lounging in the living room.
It works for me on a day like today when I'm pretty tired. So
just get to relax a little bit. You were gigging last night, right?
Yep, on this UK tour.
Instagram pictures of thousands of people looking very happy.
Yeah, it's, the kind of annual run around the UK, and it's been going really well, man. Having a good time playing records. It's loud and lots of lights and kids having a good time.
I've had this discussion with DJ Yoda before, that there's a lot of, it's weird that there's two versions of what a DJ is, because there's DJs that are on the radio and DJs that play live, and we were trying to make a list of DJs that can do both really well, and all we came up with was you, Eddie Temple Morris, and Annie Mac.
Wow, that's a good list to be on, bro.
That was that kind of three that were like, they can kill it live. How does that, like how do you find that? Because you get, obviously a lot of these ones are often student type things and I don't know, a lot of different shows. Do you get people turning up just expecting the guy off the radio, and then when you actually are as good as you are. Not to
no, it's nice of you to say. It's a good observation, because for a long time it felt like no matter how much I practiced or how many shows I did or how good the night was, that I couldn't get past he's a broadcaster first scenario.
Yeah. And
I'm very proud to be a broadcaster, and I love being a radio DJ, and I love playing records on the BBC or wherever, but when I go out and I DJ in clubs or I DJ in venues, I don't look at it as a completely separate thing, but I don't necessarily want the two to be seen the same way. I'll take the same kind of energy I have on radio and I'll apply it to those kind of nights. I use the mic, but that to me is really inspired by my love of hip hop, my love of rap DJs. The Grandmaster Flashes and and Mace from De La Soul. I mean, I remember when I did the All City show with Dan Greenpeace and Touche.
Yeah.
Theo, we booked Mace from De La Soul. And he was on stage with these two turntables and had a microphone smack dab in the middle above the mixer. And every 30, 40 seconds, he was on that mic, hyping that crowd up. And I was like, well, that's me.
It's the crazy thing on De La Soul's live show. It's Mace that's hyping the crowd. Like, it's like you've got two MCs. Yet but most of the hyping comes
he's got the voice. Yeah. It's got Mace has got that voice. Yeah. And I was like, that's me. That's what I want to do. And I think some people got it confused and thought, well, he's trying to do radio up there. But it was always just a rap thing. Yeah. So it took a long time, really, for people to recognize, I think, or some people to recognize that, well, okay, irrespective of what he does on Radio 1, when he goes out and plays live shows, he is technically a DJ. And people like, yourself and certainly DJ Yoda have really helped change that perception. Yoda's been a huge support for me.
I mean, it's a great thing, because in a way it is it's kind of it kind of makes it more impactful in many ways when people, because there are, again, a lot of the XFM and Radio 1 DJs do a lot of indie nights, and it's very much they're awesome to go and see, but they're just playing a song. So I think it kind of, once people get past any misconceptions, it's got to work in your favour that they're turning up expecting just to hear some songs, and then you're just cutting it up. It's
not a PA. I'm not going to go out there and dance. I mean, it's. Yeah. I knew very quickly when I started.
Just because you mentioned that, have you ever caught a Q-Tip DJ?
No,
because I caught him.
I would love
DJ a year ago, and there was all rumours that Tribe were going to be there because it was the same day they played a Wireless, and Q-Tip is playing, and then he ends his set. And he literally puts on a record, a James Brown record, comes out and puts on some new boots at the front of the stage, and then just dances. Amazing. And then comes down into the crowd and just gets everyone to dance. And people are trying to take pictures of their phone. He's putting them down like, no, I want you to dance.
That's amazing. That's cute. He can. Yeah. It's not that I haven't danced on stage. There's been some nights where the Running Man has come out. But I could never pretend to do the James Brown shuffle. Yeah. I mean, I knew really early on that when if I was going to DJ and I was going to tour and I was going to do that and I was going to spend nights playing records, that I was going to take it as seriously as I could and develop my own style and just be me. And it's not for everybody, but I know the people who do come and see it and pay really hard-earned money to come and see a show. I think by now they know what they're getting, and I just want it to be spontaneous and chaotic. I've never been good at blending.
Yeah.
I'm not a blending DJ. And some of my favorite DJs are. They can take you on a journey for 2, 3, 4 hours by simply keeping the same groove, and it just becomes meditative and it's a transformational experience. But for me, I'm a Bomb Squad kid. Yeah. I grew up listening to that production that just like all of a sudden there's a chainsaw. Why is there a chainsaw in that record? Yeah. And hang on, what? That's just cut into that soul record, and now it's gone back into the beat. And where are we going here? And that whole philosophy of like cut and paste and surprises and spontaneous jolts of energy, that's pretty much my whole entire philosophy on radio and on stage.
I mean, I was going to compare that to radio there as well, because I think that's one of the great things about your show. And I think your show, a lot of people don't obviously give it the credit in this way, but I think it's one of the most important shows for hip-hop, because because it's not a specialist hip-hop show. So because you'll go from all of the different genres in your background and all the different genres you love, that when you are playing hip hop, you're not just playing it to the heads that would already know this. A lot of the one extra stuff and all this other, it's amazing, but people are tuning in specifically for that. So it's not always progressing the genre or opening up to a wider audience. So like, how did you, when you got your Radio 1 show, what was your thought of what the show was? Or was it originally an indie show or a rock show or an alternative show, and then it developed, or was it always planned to be a mix of everything you love?
Well, first, I got to rewind back a bit to the XFM show, because when I was doing that, that was primarily an indie rock station.
Yeah.
And with the help of, people like, Andy Ashton and Andrew Phillips, we started to incorporate different genres of music in there.
Yeah.
And that's what led to things like the remix coming on board and things like that, was because we were saying, well, why can't we play Chemical Brothers? And why can't we play, Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg next episode?
Yeah.
That should sound really good next to Papa Roach.
Yeah, exactly.
And we started to infiltrate these songs in, but still it was a primarily rock and indie show. So when I got to Radio 1, in my mind, they were hiring me to do that. And when I got there, the first thing that they said was, so, we expect you to play everything. And I was just like, hallelujah.
Perfect meeting, right?
I was just like, hallelujah.
Particularly when you have that fear of stepping up to the BBC and this grand thing, you kind of expect to have some kind of stuff pulled back.
I thought they were going to put me in a lane. I thought they were going to put me in a lane and go, this is the lane we need you to go in. And they were like, no, here's your you can have the whole freeway.
Yeah.
This is your whole freeway. You can go whatever lane you want, and this is yours for these hours. This is yours.
Drive carefully, but go
drive erratically. Drive as fast and as erratically as you can on radio,
That's amazing.
And I just remember being really excited, and then I remember panicking and thinking, I need a crash course in drum and bass.
Yeah. Right.
Because I hadn't listened to DMB for a few years, because I'd been so focused on XFM and everything else, and I liked the records I liked, but I suddenly realized, like, man, I need some time with Fab and Groove Rider as quick as possible.
And was that an amazing thing? Because just speaking of XFM, when I accepted and started doing my show on there, I thought I knew about hip hop. And then having to do a weekly show about hip-hop has been just a blessing to me, because I know so much. There's so much hip-hop that I wouldn't have heard, I wouldn't have listened to, I wouldn't have found, because I was like, right, I need every week to have new and fresh stuff.
Because you're broadcasting for people, not just for your own ears. You're not just loading up your own iPod or your own iPhone or your own whatever.
It's so easy to find your 5 or 6 that you're into, or
and
that
you stick
little
with
group
it,
area, and stick with it. So
all of a sudden it's like, hang on, I've got like 2 hours to fill, or in our case, 8 hours to fill. And so, you're thinking, okay, we've got to find the best music. But we're lucky in the sense that because we have a broad spectrum of genres and styles to play, and everything gets played. We played the last couple of Usher singles, because we love them.
Yeah.
And our thing is like, well, he's a very credible artist in our eyes, because, he works with great producers, he has great A&R for his music, and he writes excellent hooks. And, good kiss of that beat is sick. Yeah. So we're going to play it, and my thing is like, I like little sneak attack records like that, where people think, oh, well, he's just an indie guy, or he's just that guy, or that show's just that. And I'm like, well, hang on, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Check this out. Here's the new Amory record.
Has there been anything that you've been just adamant to convince people it's dope? It's not just this pop thing. It's dope. I mean, the example I have because my show was more alternative hip hop, Kendrick was one that I was just like, look, I know you think he's just this blown up huge artist.
It's so funny. Kendrick's, you have to convince your crowd that Kendrick is cool. Yeah, because it's so funny. And I understand that.
Because over here we didn't really get Rigor Mortis and all the earlier ones that showed that all we got was the bigger ones, and people are like, right, and not listening to it in the way they maybe should.
Well, I understand that, because the kind of audience that, was listening to your show, certainly probably at the very beginning, until you start to broaden their perspective of what rap music could be. Mm-hmm. It's a very underground crowd.
Yeah,
I mean, you're listening to rappers who have been plying their trade for the love of it for a long time, and watching rap music just commercialize more and more over time.
Yeah,
that's a painful transition for people 100%. Who are making it from the heart and watching it just basically go and just go and hang at the bank. Yeah. And it's difficult. Yeah. It's a difficult two worlds to marry together. Yeah. But then you get artists like Kendrick, and I'm going to really piss your audience off now. Drake, who I think, irrespective of the criticism he gets, is contributing a huge amount to the art form, both in terms of keeping it Toronto, keeping it his crew, the beats he chooses. I mean, he makes hit records out of beats that don't sound like they should be hit records. 0 to 100 is just like whatever. And then he gets on it and you're like, oh my God, it's a classic.
The thing that confuses me with Drake, I mean, personally, I've not heard that much I'm into, but again, I respect it. Sure. The thing that confuses me is he seems to champion some amazing stuff. Yeah. Like, it's weird that I'll hear some of the stuff he's shouting about or he's making noise about, and I can't see the connection there, but thanks. Cheers, because that's kind of that's great.
But that's what's cool. You realise that he does go deeper, and I think that a lot of the people because he does get a lot of he does get a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those classic artists where that just drives him. What I really like about him is he could have been so easily swept up, like other rappers have been recently, by America and going, oh, well, you are accepted in America now, so you really have to just be Americanized because that's where rap started. Fair enough. Completely. He's gone, no, I'm going to stay in Toronto. I'm going to keep my beat makers Toronto. I'm going to start my own companies in Toronto. I'm going to do my own thing in Toronto. He still looks like he's from Toronto. You know what I mean? He goes on stage and performs in front of 30,000 people, literally looking like he's just come from the corner store. Yeah. And I just love that, I mean, it's cool. He does keep it down to earth. But I think when those two worlds are not often... They don't collide, and I'm really glad you champion Kendrick, because we all know that guy is, he's a true creative. I mean, I love playing I love playing Bobby Shmurda on my radio show, because to me, I love putting it next to, like a sensitive singer-songwriter, or, a rock band, or I love playing Duke Dumont and then playing Bobby Shmurda. Why can't you do that?
It's so weird it's so weird trying to get people to realise that, and this is going to sound odd, I guess, but you don't have to agree with everything in a song to enjoy it. Like I'll play a lot of stuff, and because my stuff's quite conscious or whatever, and Kendrick even will throw in some quite sexist or misogynistic or whatever type stuff, and people go, I can't believe you listen. Like Lil Wayne, I love Lil Wayne. I think he's one of the best rappers in the world. I think just skill-wise.
But he's lyrically raw.
Yeah.
Like he makes me uncomfortable when I hear some of his songs.
And I mean, Odd Future, another one, obviously, they have championed a lot. I remember when they first came out tweeting about a few of their tracks, and people being like, I can't believe you're supporting this. It's like, it's dope. Like what I'm listening to is amazing.
But how do you find that though? Because you are, and I use this word with the greatest of respect. In my mind, you're a righteous dude. Yeah. And everyone who knows you knows you're a righteous dude, and you've been righteous on record and righteous off the record. And how do you find sometimes when you just want to play a record because it's fun, or because it sounds cool and it makes you feel a certain way, but it might not be walking that righteous path?
I mean, that's it. It's one of the reasons I'm so addicted to social media, to try and get a broader perspective of who I am across. Because again, particularly on record, if you listen to my records, you're perfectly right to assume I'm very... not high and mighty, but along that route, righteous. Where in real life, I like a lot of stuff, and I do a lot of, I do a lot of things that aren't great. I mean,
very few people know that actually you pole dance in your spare time.
Pole dance regularly, but I donate it all to the children. So,
all your tips, you donate all your tips to charity.
I've managed to make pole dancing righteous. That's how righteous I am. So it's an interesting one, but a lot of the time, I don't believe all music should be... I think if all music was like my music, it'd be a hell of a boring world. I think you need to have that variation. You need to have that stuff. Like in a club, like when I'm DJing out live, I don't play Sage Francis and Saul, or maybe some Saul Williams, but, I don't play heavily conscious stuff, because you don't want to hear that when you're out drinking with your friends.
There are club records, and then there are cerebral records, and then there are records that make your hearts flutter and make your hearts break, and then there are records that make you want to walk down the street and grimace at strangers indiscriminately because the riff is so brutal. It's put you in that frame of mind, even though on the outside all people can hear are the passing buses and the birds tweeting, but in your head you're like, man, I'm so angry right now. Exactly. And I just that's what music's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel a certain way. And I think one of the things you and I have always connected on is the fact that I don't really feel why I've never felt genre led. I mean, actually it's not true. There was maybe 5 or 6 years where I was just rap, but that was when I was kind of making a mark in my own tastes. And I wanted to make a statement because I'd grown up with my brother's record collection, and it was an amazing record collection. And now all of a sudden I was listening to The Smiths and The Cure and Led Zeppelin and, China Crisis and all these weird new wave records. And then I discovered rap music, and I was like, this is mine. This is mine. Yeah. And you couldn't get it. There was 3 records available in the blues and soul category down at 256 Records on Queen Street in Auckland. That's
it. I mean, that's what I wanted to talk to you about as well. So going all the way back to Auckland, I know when I was growing up in Essex and rap was coming through, it was pre-internet. It was hard to get hold of records. How was it over there? Was it even harder?
It was pre-import. No, in fact, it was pre-domestic sales. It was literally just like 3. There was a couple of Street Sounds compilations that Morgan Khan put out. and there was a Grandmaster Melly Mel album.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. Maybe a Flash album, Sugar Hill Gang.
Yeah,
and I remember my friend Kirk Harding, who to this day is one of my closest friends, who now manages The Neighborhood and worked at Loud Records with Steve Rifkin for many years. Yeah. You know, he was one of the. We used to go and we used to just ask him. He used to work at 256 Records and behind the counter.
Yeah.
I'd go there after school and be like, is there anything new in? Week after week, is there anything new in? Is there anything new in? He'd be like, there's a Houdini record that just came in, go get that. So I just buy everything that came in. Yeah. Anything and everything that came in. And then my mum went to New York and I said, can you just bring back some stuff? She brought back 3 cassettes that had just come out. One was King of Rock by Run DMC. One was Yo Bum Rush the Show, Public Enemy. And one was Bad by LL Cool J.
Yeah.
I'm Bad. And I was just like, oh my God, that's my summer.
That's a hell of a trio.
I just remember looking at these.
That's good timing.
Oh, dude. Yeah, and I just looked at these 3 cassettes and I was like, I don't know which one to listen to first. Yeah. Guess which one I listened to first out of those 3? Bearing in mind, I'm a young guy.
Hello.
Of course.
Covers, artwork.
The whole works, man. The dude's like sitting, like leaning against a cop car or something. I'm like, I'm going straight for the Hollywood blockbuster.
It's 3 amazing albums, but obviously, LL, that was just
straight in there. And the first thing I heard was just like, calling all cars. We're going to need backup. Oh, nobody can rap quite like I can. I'll take a muscle-bound man and put his face in the sand. Oh my God. I was just like, what is this?
It's so good. I love that this is, it's something that the B. Dolan always goes on about. Everyone knows about tough LL and Lover Man LL, but people don't give enough credit to unintentionally hilarious LL. Songs like You Can't Dance.
No, Cheesy Rat.
Yeah.
Cheesy Rat Blues.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go for mine. It's windshield time. You know, all about this down and out guy who can't get anywhere, you know? Yeah. He's like, I'll steal a kid's tricycle. Like, he's just like the funniest. That's one of the funniest records ever. Yeah. Cheesy Rat, you ain't all that. Can you feel it? Nothing can save you. It's so funny, man.
On one of the tours with Dolan, the line, you dance like a fat old lady, not saying that fat old ladies ain't nice, was just one of the, it's just like that's classic rap right there. Surely that should be in the Hall of Fame, but.
Yeah, I mean, he is, to me, I would really credit him and Rakim.
Yeah.
And Run from Run DMC as the 3 rappers that kind of shaped my whole concept of what rap could be. And then MC Lyte.
Yeah.
Because she had that, I hadn't heard that high-pitched voice that she brought as a female MC, a high register, but she delivered it with such, like, fire. It wasn't any, it's like, I'm a girl on the mic. It was just like, you know, she was just like, hot damn hoe, here we go again. And she would spit at you. And I was just like, oh, my Lord. Amazing, you know. But it was rock, you know, those were the crew.
I think pitch is a generally ignored thing that's essential in hip hop.
Totally.
I think Eminem wouldn't be like he at points he can rap so fast because he's got that high pitch. He can go to that high pitch and he can vary it. Whereas Rakim and Kane and people like that have that bass there, that authority that instantly just drives a track through. And
that's like Guru said, it's mostly the voice. I mean, I disagree with that statement a little bit because obviously there's a lot more components, but I know what he was getting at when he wrote that line. He was like, I was blessed with this larynx and I'm going to use it, you know? Yeah. And when you look at the great MCs, I mean, look at what Nas has achieved. You know, he couldn't have delivered an album like Illmatic unless he had the voice that was compelling enough to make you listen. If he'd rapped those rhymes in a really high energy, high pitch, it wouldn't have had the same impact. But when he comes out and he starts that album, you know, straight away, you know, I don't know how to start this, man. And you listen to this voice like, oh my God, he sounds like something out of a Scorsese movie.
Yeah, yeah. Him and Mos Def always have felt like they could have recorded their whole album sitting down, but it doesn't make it any less immediate and urgent and important.
I mean, I still think the best rapping I've ever seen live in my life was at a Black Star show at the Jazz Cafe, and really? I watched Mos Def and Talib Kweli battle in a cappella, and Mos Def. Wow. I'd never seen the two MCs drop conscious rhymes in a way that was just so rap.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was being educated. I felt like I was being entertained, but in a way with words that just made me think. It was just wild, man.
KRS Edutainment.
KRS-One, Knowledge Reigns Supreme. I mean, that guy, I mean, literally, he's another one. I mean, the first time I ever heard poetry.
Yeah.
Wow. But the turning point for me was Lyrics of Fury.
Right.
You know, I heard the rhymes and lyrics of Fury, and I just, it was like, I blessed the child, the earth, the gods, and bomb the rest. I mean, just the lyrical imagery that he was coming up with, the fire. You know, it was like he was sent from another planet to me. I couldn't get my head around. I still to this day, I listen to songs like Lyrics of Fury, and I'm like, no one can top that. Yeah,
it's just amazing. So where did it go from that? You got those 3 records. What made you want to produce or start a group? You know,
it was just compulsive. It was compulsive. I just became obsessed. I became obsessed with rap, and so it's just if you become obsessed with something enough, eventually you want to immerse yourself so deep into it, you want to try it, whether it's skateboarding or football or acting or science or whatever. For me, it was rap music.
It's one of the most seemingly accessible genres, I think. There's particularly before I started, the people that I saw live, and I was going to a lot of punk gigs, but also hip hop gigs and rap, hardcore gigs and whatever else. It was the rap gigs where I'd look and go, man, I could do that. I could,
so jealous.
It would take a lot of work, but I could do that.
I'm so jealous. There were no rap gigs, man. I mean, I used to get the NME and used to cut out the articles. Then there was only about 2 or 3 every single week, and we'd have to get it imported from the UK, so it would arrive 2 months later. So I'd get these NMEs, and I'd cut out these black and white photos of Mantronics live or King T at the Forum or somewhere, and I'd made my own scrapbooks, so I had nothing but rap articles in them, so I could bypass all the other stuff and just focus on the rap stuff. Then I just started writing because I was like, I can't play an instrument, so I'm going to just start writing rhymes. And I just wrote. I would sit at home and I would write a whole album in a day. But they weren't very good. I mean, they were like, literally the cat sat on the mat, but I would just write these songs, write approximately 3 verses for each song. Then I would fold it, name it, and then I would make 10 of them. Then I would put a rubber band around them, name the album, and I would put it away. And eventually my mum just found hundreds of these raps. And she biffed them all.
Oh, that's outrageous.
I'm sure she said, it was an accident. I'm sure she just read a few and went, they're not very good. But it just didn't make me want to start.
For your own good.
For my own good. No one should find these. No one should find these, No one should rap like work and jerk in the same rhyme. And then my friend just convinced me we need to do a show. I'll be the DJ, you be the rapper. We'll do one song at a club night we're doing for underage. We're doing underage nights. Come and jump up and rap. And we did.
And how was that?
Terrifying.
How did it feel to be in front of the crowd? And
terrifying. It was a blur. I don't really remember much about it. I remember we sampled Funky Drummer in the track, and we also sampled Blow Your Head by Fred Wesley in the track, So it was all like, it was all just very basic stuff. But got the bug. Started a band, and that was it. That was the rest of my kind of teenage years was spent trying to make an album and tour with loads of Flying Nun bands, and because there wasn't a lot of rap audience out there, so we'd have to.
How was that attempting to tour in a place you've said there's no rap gigs?
We would tour with the 3Ds, legendary New Zealand indie bands, and go play universities with the 3Ds. So we'd be on doing these raps, like half-an-hour rap sets, and then 3Ds would come on. There's this legendary New Zealand Flying Nun acts, with a rap band supporting. It was bizarre.
And how'd it go down?
It was cool, it was good. I mean, we were just kids, man. We were just having fun. We were just jumping in a van. Our friends would drive us in cars. And we were just dudes on the road having a laugh and playing shows and trying to remember our rhymes. And it was great, and it was sort of the adolescent dream. I mean, I know that nowadays there are teenagers who are, selling millions of records and traveling the world and fulfilling all their dreams at such a rapid rate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can't even imagine what that's like. But we lived a far more stereotypical adolescent music life, which was just like get in the van, tour the country you're in, play as many shows as you can.
Yeah, I think the key, a thing I've learned over the years, and I tell every support act I can, is that if you're a support act, you can't get the song wrong. If you don't let it, if you don't let it show. So again, it's thinking I need to get my lines right. I need to remember my
style
lines
it out.
Yeah, as long as you style it out.
Style it out.
If they don't know it already,
style it out.
It's right.
If you have to, just stop the song and you guys aren't even ready for that.
And
everyone knows you're absolutely BSing them big time, but it doesn't matter. They'll applaud the fact you tried.
Rewind the record.
There's nothing worse than being like, yo, I fucked up, man. Damn, man, I'm such a loser. It's the last thing you want to do. Wait a minute. They're not ready for that. Just give me 5 minutes to go backstage and check my lyric sheet, then I'll come back.
Now you're ready.
Exactly.
And where did that all develop then? from there, when did you make the move?
Well, we made the album. We had fun. We toured it. I got some work, music, TV, just because I wasn't getting anywhere in the bar trade, and it wasn't really working out for me. I couldn't make it to regular shift work. I was still like basically kind of clearing tables. And realized that wasn't my life, and I got a job being a tape op at a music channel, and then that kind of led me to be on camera for a dance/rap music /R&B soul kind of show, and that was my kind of thing. And then
that must have been a dream at the time as well, right? To get to go and be involved in.
What was the dream was I was making some money.
Right, yeah.
I was making just a little bit of walking around money. I was taking the pressure off my mum, who was like, can you stop drinking cans of beer and watching the Donahue show and eating quarter pounders all day because you're bored and miserable and depressed? You know, can you get out in the world? I know you don't want to go to university anymore, but can you do something? So what was nice was that I had some purpose. And then when I was on camera, I didn't realize that was my path. I just said, I'll do that. And I suppose I didn't even really realize it until I started doing interviews. And then people responded to the interviews.
That's great.
The first interview I did was with a guy called Nick, who was in the Lemonheads, the bass player of the Lemonheads at the time. And that was the first time I ever interviewed anyone, and I really enjoyed it. And I really liked doing what we're doing now and talking about music and just sharing stories. And that's when I really realized, okay, maybe there's a future for me here. But it was always TV. And then I had an inkling that maybe radio would be something I'd want to do, but only after I'd moved to the UK and had been working at MTV for a while. And then XFM came calling.
And how was MTV? Because obviously Gonzo, I think, again, was a key show for getting people across that weren't getting covered, or certainly weren't getting on TV, that might have been getting some airplay or anything else. But at that point, all you had was, I mean, kind of as you have now,
not a lot.
Jules Holland and one or two things that you need to be kind of established to get on there. So how exciting was that to get to just go? It felt very punk rock and guerrilla in itself. So how enjoyable was that? And what was the
story behind that was interesting, man, because I mean I've been really lucky with great timing of the things I've been a part of in terms of the way music shifts. So, you know, I'd gone to MTV, I'd worked my way through MTV News and done a few bits and bobs, worked on Up For It with Eddie for a while, and
of course.
Then got this opportunity things had changed and become very pop. Not dissimilar to what we've been going through for the past few years. You know, a lot of pop stars and Backstreet Boys, Westlife, all these things were huge. And you know, this woman, Christine Bohr, who ran MTV at the time, she was like, you know, we still need a new music show to satisfy the labels. You know, we still got to keep people happy and make sure that we're promoting the new and exciting stuff. And also, she was a fan of that music. So she said, you can do this show called Brand New. You and a friend of mine, Paul Shivers, who, you know, who was a very close friend of ours. And we made this show for a few years, and it was just a no man's land. It was just, we felt like we were just broadcasting to nobody. And, you know, in that time, we started to see music was shifting.
I mean, that was kind of the amazing thing with MTV2 at the time, was there seemed to be these shows on at night and stuff like that where, again, anytime I'd watch things like that, it'd kind of feel as if I'm the only person watching.
Exactly. And MTV2 started around this time as Brand New was ending. And I remember the conversation, how it went. The MTV had changed hands. It was in the hands of new management and stuff, people who were running it. And this guy said to me, look, we're going to end Brand New. And I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, how can you end Brand New, you know? And this is on the main channel. And then he went, but, you know, it's okay because the guys at MTV2 want you to go over there. And I was like, good, thanks, cool, great, nice one, bye. Excellent. And there was just an outline of dust of me walking. Because I was already like up the end of the corridor, you know? And I walked straight up there, and they didn't even get up out of their desks. I leaned against a filing cabinet in their little corner of the office and said, hey man, so we're going to work. They were like, great. It was like 4 of them. Will McGilvery now works up at Transgressive. A guy called Nick Hutchings, a guy called Jim Hickey, who's now a director, and one other kid, I think. And we just went, one other guy, and we just went, what are we going to do? And they went, I don't know, man. We were thinking like a handheld show, like literally in a closet, no budget, just links and videos, make it an afternoon thing. And I was like, cool. And then depending on who you talk to about the name, I came up with the name. Right. No, it was like, and someone said, we'll make it Gonzo Journalism. And I was like, well, let's just call it Gonzo, or someone let's just call it Gonzo to be safe. And we did it, and it was done. And in 5 minutes, it was talked about, and it was done. And then like 2 days or a week later, we were on the air, and that was it.
That's perfect.
For 9 years.
It's so simple and easy. And people talk a lot about luck and timing. But I think one of the key things with people like yourself being successful and doing stuff is the actual act of just doing it.
Stick with it.
There's a lot of luck there, but the people that are sitting at home thinking, I wonder if this opportunity is going to come. If you're there doing it, then you're the one that opportunity is going to fall to.
Well, a friend of mine said to me when I was starting to work in this industry way back in the day, he's like, there's this kind of world that there's a room and everyone will try and get into the middle of the room and everyone will try and get their moment in the middle of the room. But if you stay in your corner, eventually people will come to you. And so the idea was like, look, this is the music I love. I can't fight that. I'm not going to change who I am because something's popular. And just as MTV2 and Gonzo began, hello, here's the Strokes. Hello, here's, the Killers. Here's all these bands. And they came to us. They were like, we want to go there because that's the show that likes that music. Yeah. And then Radio 1 came along and it was this perfect kind of transitional moment. And that was kind of when we went through that 4 or 5 years where it was all guitars and it was just a really good time. I mean, we just had a really good time. And the reason we ended Gonzo was because, again, things had changed musically. It didn't feel appropriate for us to be talking about cheese at a time where rock bands were getting dropped and records weren't selling.
Right,
It felt like we were sort of thumbing our nose to it a bit like, oh, look, we've got a band on the couch. You're not selling out gigs or anything. Let's talk about something completely irrelevant. It was the irrelevance and the stupidity only worked when the bands were killing it.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need to talk about how successful you are because you're huge, so let's talk about cheese.
Yeah. Whereas at that point, it's like, no, we really would like to plug our record this
out.
Really
and then it just sounds desperate and no one wants that. Yeah, so we just ended it. We ended it.
So how did the XFM thing come about initially? And how did you feel about, obviously you'd been TV, like how did you feel about the idea of radio? Or
I was into it, man. I mean, I was actually this close to calling up XFM and saying, hey, do you want, I'd love to come and try out.
Amazing.
I just got the bug. I just thought I'd like to do that.
Yeah,
I'd like to try it at least. My dad comes from radio. He was never a broadcaster, but he was a promo man who ended up running radio stations, and he's retired now. But he's like a Hall of Famer in New Zealand,
amazing.
And so I guess it was in the blood. And so I got this call. This guy said, "G'day, my son told me I should give you a call. He's a fan of what you do on telly. So do you want to come in and have a tryout and put you on an overnight?" Did a couple of overnights, and then they got me my evening show, And I just loved it. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I certainly wasn't as confident as I am now in what I'm doing. And I remember, in fact, I was finding it really difficult to find my flow, because I was on a Monday, a Thursday, and a Friday, I think. And on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, Tim Lovejoy had his Studio 68 program.
Right,
and he just pulled all these resources in from the station. And it was like this huge magazine, like all singing, all dancing, almost like a TFI type thing.
Yeah.
And then there was just me and some records. I didn't even have a producer.
Yeah,
and so I just said to my friend Ben, who's a skateboarding dude, and he makes snowboarding and skateboarding videos, and he's just one of those kind of classic rad guys.
Yeah.
And he's honest. I just said to him, I don't know what to do. I'm lost. And he went, well, you know how when you have a few beers in you and you just want to tell me how amazing this band is and you want to just air drum and you basically play every drum part to the Deftones and you just act this guy.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Just do that. Just yell about the records. Sing about them if you have to. Just enthuse. Just be the guy you are, And that's what happened. And that's who I've been ever since.
It's such a weird thing that it's so rare that people are genuinely excited and passionate on the radio about music. It's particularly at that time, I guess, it was a thing where you were there, your job was being the host and the music was kind of an in-between thing, whereas it was great and again, not to keep referencing him, Eddie Temple Morris was another one that he was exploding about each track and you've got to hear this is the most amazing thing.
We're fans.
Insane.
We're fans. You're a fan. We're all fans.
Exactly.
And just because the whole process of sharing the music stems from being a fan of it.
Yeah.
Not because I want to teach. I want to share.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, I want to share in that experience with you if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I don't just want to facilitate your experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that I'm having the same experience.
So
we're inclusive together in this experience. Yeah. And as opposed to me being like, and here's a song and I'll connect you with the song, la la la. No, the music is connecting us.
Afterwards.
The music is connecting us.
That must be amazing for you. Obviously, I'm jumping a lot here, but then you went to Radio 1 and it was obviously this huge, bigger thing. And bizarrely, as you've just said, having more freedom and more free reign. How was it then? Because that also coincided with the time of, or gradually coincided with the climb of social media. So getting that greater interaction and response, to knowing everyone checking in at the beginning of the show and all this interaction, and how was that? I think that's another thing that you were one of the first I saw to really engage that live audience rather than it just being you listening.
It's funny because I may have been one of the first, or at the beginning with DJs to try and incorporate it into radio, but I was late on social media.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to use Facebook. I didn't really want to do that. I was like, nah, you know. I remember Annie Mac saying, "You on Twitter?" And I'm like, "What's Twitter?" And she's like, "Man, I got 26,000 followers on Twitter." Yeah. And I'm like, "What the hell is Twitter?" And I was quite belligerent about it. It was weird. I had this thing in my mind where I was just like, "Nah, man, whatever." You know, I couldn't be more wrong. And I remember, and I'm just gonna say, because I've never really said who it was, but stuff that, you know, I remember having 2 hangouts with 2 different artists, and both of them giving me a hard time about it within about a month of each other, completely unrelated. I remember having a coffee with Mike Skinner, and he's like, "You need to get on Twitter.
Yeah.
You need to get on Twitter, because I want to hear what you have to say on Twitter. And secondly, if you don't, you're going to get left behind. Because at some point, people are going to start measuring part of your worth according to how many people you can reach on these things."
Isn't it? Yeah.
Now, Mike's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
So I listened to him. So that planted the seed. And then I was in LA, and just through mutual friends, I ended up I went to dinner with a bunch of people, and one of them was Trent Reznor. Yeah. So I'm sitting opposite Trent Reznor, and me and Trent get on really good now, but this is one of the first times we really met properly. And he was just, "How are you?" And I'd had this run of disastrous TV meetings in LA, where nothing had come of it, because they wanted panel shows, and I mean, they wanted, like, you know, the next American Idol guys.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not that. And I said, "It's been disastrous." And he went, "Well, you know, you should use the internet more and stop worrying about where you've been and start worrying about where you're going."
Yeah.
And this just made me think, like, okay, well, look, if these 2 guys who are the smartest people I've ever listened to.
And not necessarily the people you'd think, like Trent in particular, wouldn't particularly think him as an advocate of social media.
He was really big at the beginning, at the time. And then but the funny thing was that within 2 months of them both telling me that, and I'd started my account, they both fucked off. They both walked away for like a year each. It was hilarious. I was like, "Thanks, guys. What have you walked me into?" You know what I mean?
And they wanted to leave it in safe hands.
I think they'd both
like, "We're both going to leave. We need to get someone to look after this shit while we're gone."
I think they both just had enough for a while. But I mean, by that point, I realized, like, this is a thing I need to get on. And then we started to incorporate it into the radio, and we realized that, look, this is how we're going to measure, to a certain extent, the connectability. And also I realized we can really connect to audience in real time. And we can also canvas for listeners. It sounds awfully political and horrible, but we can go online and we can link a band, put the link up to the radio station online, and we can say, "Coming up next is this." And immediately the band are going to retweet to all their fans. And if you can get 100 people tuning in off that, then you're connecting to more people. So I was like, this is straightforward, and the fact that I'm so slow on this is something I'll only ever admit to Scroobius Pip.
It makes tons of sense though, man, and it really works with the live show and that interactiveness. And as I said, the buzz that radio, what you find out when you start doing it, is about that connection with other people, playing that track and not just sitting there going, "I've played it, that's out there."
And
just
it's out
seeing
there,
the excitement that you got coming back at you, kind of.
Well, we were faced with this internet revolution when I was still on the air, and all of a sudden songs were leaking, and you know, well, hang on, when are we playing this song?
Yeah, it's already out there.
What's going on? How's this working? Like, where's our kind of cornerstone philosophy now of, like, we're trying to get them to music to you as quick as we can, and we want to be this place to break records, and how are we gonna? So again, I got some great advice, which was like, you need to just not fight this. Because forget it. Because, by the way, every industry is going to be affected by this over time. So don't just think you're a hard done by music fan.
Yeah, completely.
It's going to happen. We're about to, you know, this is the on-demand future, and it's about to go down. So you just need to adapt, and you need to make it work for you. And so that's what we did. And we just started to loosen up and let go and just actually work with the internet and use it. And I suddenly realized, like, I don't really want to be blasting people with hashtags the whole time. What I want to be doing is using the internet silently for the show. So not make it a radio feature, just use it for what it's there for.
Just
use it parallel alongside the radio show.
Yeah, that's great.
And just let it integrate quietly into the show, as opposed to, "I'm online and check out this and that. Like, no, I'll just be online while I'm on the air.
Yeah.
It's cool. And if you are too, then great.
Yeah.
Twitter, let's go.
I like that whole leaking of songs and things like that has kind of made radio open for who's the hungriest in many ways. Like, there's no longer, like, I've had stuff when I was doing the beatdown that pluggers would send me, and I'd have to break it to them. I played it 2 weeks ago because I heard it on a blog, and I was like, right, this is awesome.
And by the way, they're not mad at you about that.
Yeah.
They may have to pretend they are because they've got management and labels who are yelling at them.
And already going. So it kind of erases that. It's not always a good thing because it's often people like Radio 1 who get these big exclusives, but it's kind of nice because it lets everyone fight for it. It's like you've got it exclusive, but if it's already leaked somewhere, you need to move quick on that. You have
to let go as much as you can. Some of them sting because you've got relationships with artists, and someone else might leak the record, and you're like, man, I spent 4 years really breaking that artist, and I really wish I could have continued that relationship, because it's really not about winning a medal for playing it first.
No.
It's about building relationships with artists, because that is the lifeblood of your audience and the lifeblood of your show, and and part of the lifeblood of the artist is to have relationships with people they can trust, so their music gets sold and talked about in a passionate way, and contextualized in an understanding way that the audience will appreciate too. Yeah, completely.
A play that is preceded by a genuine comment or discussion on what they've played.
You care about it.
Means so much more than just, here's something that obviously he had to play at this point because it's on the playlist.
Here's something that leaked. That's the one thing that we learned, was when things started to leak, we were like, okay, this is going to happen. And we're entering into a playlist future, which is now playlist present. And, that's great. We all make playlists. We're into it. But the thing about algorithm is algorithms don't sell music to people. No. They make it available.
Yeah.
But within an hour, something else is the story.
Yeah.
So you have an hour window where you're trending or whatever, and this song's leaked, and oh my God! And then an hour later, something else has taken its place.
Yeah.
And, who knows if it's in that hour it's caught. You'll know in a week if you've got hundreds of millions of views, but it just might not catch.
You've got that moment.
But what the heart affords us, not to sound like corny, but what the heart affords us is like real rhythm.
Yeah.
So if you can combine the two, the algorithm of the modern age with the real rhythm of human endorsement, a real passion, then that to me is like, where we're at. And
completely, it makes all the difference when it's, I've always felt that a recommendation from a friend is worth a million times more than a play. That's how you get into music.
That's how you learn. Yeah. You either learn it from your parents, or you learn it from your siblings, or you learn it from the guy behind the record store counter back in the day, or from your friends at school, or because someone is wearing a t-shirt and it looks cool and you want to know what that is.
Totally.
You won't learn so much if it just shows up on a playlist.
Yeah.
Because what is it? Where's the story? Where's the romance of it? Where's the mystery? Where's the excitement? Where's the build? And I don't know, man. I'm all for pushing forward and progressing. I'm very progressively minded now, but at the same time, I know that human beings need to communicate with human beings.
Yeah, and actually engage properly. It's the weird thing with Spotify, that whole campaign of, is it the 4 million? I think it is. There's something like 4 million songs that haven't had a single play on Spotify.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
Everything's available. It's the whole thing of every song's available. It's like, but when every song's available, it's so hard to see.
God, I've spent 15 minutes looking at Spotify before when I've been on holiday. Yeah. And I've loved it. Yeah. It's been a great 15 minutes. But by the end of it, I'm like, I still don't know what I want to listen to.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's beautiful to have that choice. The people have demanded it. They've forced the industry to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
We're now living in an industry, in a world that is on demand, that is people have the choice.
Yeah.
I just still love sitting down with people like you and talking about how great Rakim is.
Do you think anyone will ever fall in love with an album on Spotify in the same way that you would fall in love with an album when you had been bought 3 albums back from New York and that's all you could get of rap? That's all you could listen to.
Yeah, I think
those albums had such value and had to be played and played and played again and learn in and out, rather than, cool, I'm going to go onto this, or it's going to automatically start playing another playlist now. And
I think they do, because I think people love design. I love lamp. People love all sorts of things. You know what I mean? And I think that the platform and the mechanism is still just that. I think the music will connect you. And by the way, you could find that record when you're at a low point in your life, and all of a sudden you'll stream that for 2 weeks. Yeah. It's the same as in some respects, but at the same time, I do think that when it's handed to you either verbally or physically, or it's recommended to you by somebody, it has that. It becomes a story. It starts a story.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that when songs just appear, there's any story.
Yeah, completely.
What it is it's kind of like just throwing the newspaper through your door.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you're not living it.
No. Yeah, no, I get that.
It's just a delivery mechanism.
That makes sense. What do you... Obviously, it's your job to find music, or you get a lot of music pushed upon you. Do you get that pleasure of just stumbling across stuff for yourself? And is that still something that drives you and gets you? Yeah, definitely.
And I've never beaten myself up over, like, I've never been the guy who's wanted to... You know, I go deep online and find great music and follow recommendations and, you know, hit SoundCloud and do that. And, you know, my friend Uche has just kind of given me some tips on how to go even deeper, you know, and I love that. I love that you can sort of go and find someone on SoundCloud and then within an hour you're just somewhere else completely on SoundCloud listening to some music you never, by someone who has, you know, 34 followers. But at the same time, I also love, you know, being told that, you know, there's a new Arctic Monkeys album coming. Yeah. And it's in the system and we're going to work it that way. And I've never been a snob about that. Like, I just love finding out about music. I don't mind if someone tells me about it. I don't mind if I hear it from you or from Hugh Stevens or John Kennedy or Jason Bentley. I don't really mind. I just want to hear about it.
Just need to hear that.
I just need to hear about it.
So we touched upon it earlier, was the finding in that first interview that you that you enjoy interviewing, and I think that's one of the things that I've been saying. I've been planning like who I'm lining up for these podcasts, and you were genuinely one of the ones I was most excited about because you're so regularly on the other side of this. You're so regularly on the other side. So
can't you tell by the way I just won't? Like, I have no interviewee etiquette whatsoever.
No, that's perfect. But how was it to then get to interview so... Like, I mean, the list is endless, with particularly in recent years with Kanye and Jay-Z and just all of these people. How's that been? And just how have you found that? Becoming not just the radio guy, becoming the long-form interview guy. There's not a lot of places on radio where you'll get a 30-minute interview or, you know, a proper in-depth thing.
It's been a relief, if I'm honest, because it's one of the things I started doing right at the start. Yeah. And before I even got on a plane and came to the UK, I'd interviewed so many people. I mean, my show reel was like 25 minutes long. It was so misguided. I didn't realize I was supposed to be a minute long, you know. And I'd interviewed even just in New Zealand, I'd interviewed everyone from, you know, Soundgarden, Chris Cornell to Billy Corgan to the Beastie Boys to Katie Lang to Garth Brooks to Meatloaf. So I'd just done all these interviews because even at Max TV, I was like the interview guy.
And the only port of call, I'd imagine, when a lot of people are over there or in...
They're touring, they got to do something, right? You know, they're going to talk to a newspaper and they're going to talk to BFM and they're going to come to Max TV and, well, we'll talk to Zane. So it was great, but I'd been doing it for so long and I'd been told, especially in recent years, that the internet, you know, shorter, quicker bites. You can't, there's no long form future here. And it was the one thing I just thought, well, no one's ever really going to look at me that way. No one's ever going to look at me as an interviewer. They're just going to see me as this over-enthusiastic, shouty bloke who obviously likes music. So, you know, from my point of view, I just suddenly realized that this may never happen. People may never look at me in the light of like, oh, he's an interviewer. He loves to talk about music with people and he, you know, he's thoughtful with it. And the Jay-Z thing changed that. So that changed really when the Jay-Z interview happened. Because he wanted it on camera. That was important to him. And so we filmed it. And then the experiment was, well, let's make these 4 parts of 10 to 15 minutes each and see if people watch it. And if they do, see for how long they watch it for. And the stats were just astounding. You know, a lot of people watched it. And people were watching it for... I mean, I don't really know what the original average time to watch a YouTube interview at peak clip was, but they were saying it's 5, 6, in some cases 10 times longer than the average. And so that sort of planted the seed like, okay, well, you know, there is room for long form. And we knew there was anyway, things like TED Talks and hugely intellectual, interesting things, but not really music interviews. So we were like, great, let's do this. And
it's crazy that people didn't think of it for music interviews because it's one of the things that people are so passionate about. I know it's often more of a hardcore few, but I want to hear the Beastie Boys talk for hours.
It was such a simple concept. just make it as long as it needs to be. And all of a sudden we realize, well, actually the innovation here is that you don't have to do a 6-part series in an order because no one's tuning in by appointment. And it doesn't have to be 52 minutes to allow for 8 minutes of advertising. It can be an hour and 12 minutes and 33 seconds. It can be as long as it needs to be. And so then Kanye came along, and obviously that just was like totally unexpected and like, you know, totally unique and wonderful experience. And then Eminem happened. So we had these 3 interviews within 6 months, and all of a sudden people were talking and saying, well, this guy does good interviews. And it was just kind of a relief. It was like, well, I've been doing that for nearly 20 years. So I'm really glad that people actually think that what I do, not everybody, but some people think what I do is good in that world. And now, you know, we've done the Rick one and the Chris Martin one, and there's a couple more we're planning, and it's just cool. I love it. It's the only thing I want to do on camera, Scroob.
It's insane.
I don't want to present anymore. I just want to do interviews.
Talk to people.
Yeah.
Of those 3, instantly the one I want to ask you about first, for some reason, is Eminem.
Okay.
Just, how was that? Because I think Eminem is one of the most naturally gifted and talented guys. I've not loved everything he's done, but there's nothing wrong with that. How was that, getting to talk to him? Because he's someone that always struck me as much of a hip-hop fan as he is an artist, if you know what I mean.
Oh, so, that's exactly, he is. He is the fan. He just wants to rap.
I love Kanye, I love Jay-Z and other, but he was the one that always felt he's just the kid that it's amazing that he gets to do this now when he can quote every rapper. And
I mean, that's what's come across. And I look back over all the interviews I've done with him, and it's always been that.
Yeah.
Every time I tried to ask him about the fame, he just shut me down.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm just a rap fan.
Yeah.
You know, for the 8th time, I'm just a rap fan. Yeah. How many times do I have to tell you in interviews, I'm just a rap fan? Why are you not listening to me? I know I'm selling millions of records and the whole world wants my opinion, but I'm just a rap fan. Zane, listen to me. I'm a rap fan, you know? And this time I sat down with him and I was like, you're a rap fan.
Yeah.
And it's the first time.
Now.
It's the first time since the very first interview I did with him.
Yeah.
Which was like, you're a rap fan.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, no, you're the superstar.
You're
yeah. And so we just got back to being rap fans. And it was just nice, you know. I've talked to him throughout his entire career. I've never seen him in a happy. I mean, I don't know him well enough to say this, but I've never seen him in what seems to be, you know, just a healthier place as an artist and as a person. He just seems really cool and in a good spot. And I think people are like, why did you go and talk about his mom? Why did you do this? It's like, because, man, he says it all on the records.
Yeah.
Let's just have a conversation, 2 dudes. See the human side of him. Stop looking at him as the character that he is in his albums, and actually look at him as a father and as a person and as a human being and just as a normal dude. Because that to me is more fascinating than getting, you know, the crazy Eminem, because he's not that guy.
And that's it. I think the thing that podcasts and all these different long-form interviews are opening to me anyway is that I'm far more interested in interviews without an agenda, that aren't a promo thing, aren't that I've got my album coming out at this point, aren't from the other side of the interview going, I need to get some dirt, I need to get some shit, I need to
I've never been any good at that. Like, I can't do it.
It's just no good.
It makes my skin crawl.
It's more exciting seeing 2 people just talking.
Oh, dude, I mean, the Chris Martin interview was painful for me. Everyone's like, wow, you really got stuff out of him. I'm like, dude, I just opened the door a little bit. He's the one who walked through it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not that guy. I can't sit there and like, you know, I want to talk about the tragedy. You know, I can't do it. Yeah, because I'm just a music fan. You know, I just feel really blessed, man, that I can... It's weird even to just be having a conversation with you about experiences that I've had and we've had and sharing this, when really I'm just this guy who is obsessed with music and the people who make it. Yeah. And I just want to be as close to it as I can be, whether it's in the studio making music with people or whether it's interviewing them or playing the records or just being in a pub talking about it. It doesn't matter, you know, and so here I am, you know, 20 odd years into my career and I'm still allowed to do that. So, I mean, I'm just thankful every day.
How was I'm going to go through and ask how was everyone, and you're not going to be able to give me anything, but just again the difference between talking to an Eminem and talking to a Jay-Z, who I think is the best businessman and forward thinker in the history of rap. So how was that? Was that a different kind of thing, of kind of more of a almost almost a business interview as much as a music interview?
It's one of my favourite interviews I've ever been a part of. The interview, I was floating at the end of it, not just because Jay-Z's a charismatic guy and he's charming and he makes you feel very at ease and he's just a really nice guy to talk to, but also because I felt like I was just given this insight, and hopefully it helped to facilitate this insight into the 360 degrees of what rap is now.
Yeah, completely.
From being an artist to being a businessman to being a public figure to being politically minded, you know, all these things that rappers can achieve now. And I just remember thinking at the end of it, like, I remember looking at those records, those 3 records in that record store when it was just being made.
Yeah.
You know, this is like a year or 2 on from the block parties.
Yeah.
You know,
crazy.
And now look where rap is. And
Jay-Z beautifully as a businessman and a rapper summed it up perfectly in his declaration and realization. I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. And it's just, that was one of the most simple things. It's like, that's perfect. That is what rappers become. And if you can do that and keep right with yourself on both sides of that line, then that's got to be perfect, right?
People diss Magna Carta, but you look at the themes of Magna Carta and what he's trying to say, which is just like, you know, how much is enough? Like, you know, you fly so close to the sun, you know, it can become a consuming experience. Then you look at the world of media these days and what it is. Yeah. And you know, the absolute desire for people to read about people, everything. And you know, I mean, I think he strove to say something on that record that got missed because people felt that the music wasn't up to scratch, which is fine because every artist has albums that aren't classics. You know, not every Neil Young album is a classic, but you know, I think he was striving to say something there, and I think that the message, if it had been a little bit more clear, it could have had more impact. But I mean, I love that record because I love rap records, and he made a rap record. Yeah. But I mean, you know, from my point of view, he was one of my favorite artists to talk to and remains to this day that. And, you know, I mean, I'll just broach the subject now so you don't have to. I mean, it set things up perfectly for Kanye because that couldn't have been more different. Yeah, I mean, it felt like the Kanye one was the one that really made everyone turn. I mean, you got him obviously at a time when Kanye was... Oh, it was hilarious, man. We tried for years to do it. We were trying to do it. We've been trying to get Kanye for 3 years and he hadn't done anything. And then this whisper got to us like he might do something, then he is going to do something, then he's here. Yeah. It was that quick. And he walked in on his own, sat down, and for the first 8 minutes, if you listen to that interview, we're just talking about music. I'm like, this is my dream. Yeah. I get Kanye talking about music and then the switch, you know. Something I want to say, if I can. And I just want to use this platform to say this. And then that was an hour later, you know, still talking. And it was, I was just hanging on, really. Yeah. And that's why people laugh. Like, that wasn't an interview. Well, they're kind of right. Yeah. You know, I didn't really ask that many questions. But at the same time, I learned something really valuable years ago, which is that the job of an interviewer is to facilitate information for an audience that are hungry to hear it. And if someone is actively giving that information up, don't get in the way and don't put your ego in the way and don't try and integrate yourself in the conversation in order to stake your percentage of a conversation online or on TV or on radio at all. Completely. Get the fuck out of the way and let them say what they want to say. And at that point, I realized that that's exactly Kanye knew what he wanted to say. So I'll just sit back there and just do a few noddies. So it must have been insane, though, to get to start off with the Kanye that no one seemed to have seen for such a long time. The Kanye that's just a music fan. And when he came out, because of his production, everything, it was clear, just a music fan. A music nerd. Yeah. I'd go as far to say. Yeah, I thought that's where we were going to go. I thought it was going to be Yeezus, and then maybe I'll talk a little bit about the trilogy. And then it was like, nope. But I mean, God, that started not just a sort of snowball effect for me as an interviewer internationally, but you know, it was a huge moment for Kanye because from there it went Kimmel, and then it went, you know, Power, and then it went Sway, and then it went On Stage, and now, you know, Kanye is the world's biggest rock star, no question. No one else even comes close. Yeah, it's true. And I love him for it. You know, he is the world's biggest creative enigma at this point. Yeah, and it's perfect. I love the most enigmatic artist on the planet. I can't help but ponder and pontificate how much of it is beautifully planned out and scripted. Like, I think it's from the heart, man. Every gig where you see people tweeting and saying he had a go at the lighting man, it's like, he's doing that a lot, and you all tweet about it a lot, and you all talk about it a lot. It's kind of, that feels. But you're a beautiful cynic, Scroob. You are a beautiful cynic. I mean, you listen to your records, and it's like, let's be honest here. You know, there's not a lot of Coldplayisms going on here. You're cutting through and coming up with perspectives that are, you know, not in a bad way. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. The craziness of Kanye is a beautiful, perfectly planned. That has made him the biggest rock star in the world. Who knows? I mean, I think he has this fire that is bigger than almost any artistic fire out there right now.
Yeah.
And it burns so bright that it can be so consuming, that it consume the public's attention, and it can consume him.
Yeah.
And he just has to say it. He has to do it. And I've long realized that a lot of the greatest music, really, arguably all of it, is the stuff that has to be made.
Yeah.
Not that wants to be made or could be made, but it has to be made. Those classic albums are the ones where things have to be said. You got to get it out. And you just get from Kanye, he has to get it out, for better or for worse, you know, through respect and through criticism. He has to get it out.
One of my favourite Ian MacKaye from Minor Threat and Fugazi quotes was him saying that he's always far more excited to hear music made by people who haven't quite got the time or ability or skill to fully express everything that they want to get out, because it's just rippling and bubbling, rather than suddenly it's one of those bands where everyone's a multi-instrumentalist and can just, you know, deliver exactly what they want. That's the excitement. And although obviously I'm not saying that Kanye hasn't got the technical ability, no doubt has.
I know you're a big Yes fan. It's okay.
It feels that big push through of he needs to get this out now, and this whole...
I know you love Genesis. It's fine. I mean, the point... Look, I agree. And now you've experienced the other side of having to try and interview those artists.
Yeah.
Trying to get them to express themselves when they're like, that's not why I got into this. I got into this because I can't express myself. Yeah. So I do it through music. Yeah. Now you want to ask me questions? Are you serious? Come on. You can't judge an artist on their ability to communicate. You judge it on the art they make. And so, you know, people were shocked by Kanye's interview, and some people loved it. Some people it just served to mesmerize them. It compelled them. Some people, it just strengthened an already existing opinion. It was the single most unique interview experience I've ever had.
To hip hop at the moment, I think he's just he's to be that big but still that unique and that out there and that unhinged is an amazing thing.
Yeah, he's just him.
Yeah,
there's one him. There's no conformity there at all.
Just quickly also on getting to go to Rick Rubin and getting to go to the...
You must have met him. You must have met him.
I've never met him.
Oh, come on. I would have thought...
close numerous times. Or the first time...
You and him.
Me and Dan Lasac toured the US, he apparently... I wanted to have a meeting with us because we were unsigned over there at that time. Yeah. And it never came through. I've never known if it was a manager kind of...
No, I know. The reason why I thought you would have met him is because you as an artist and the music you make is, I would imagine, is right up his street. Yeah. You know, I mean,
How was that? He's been... the silent partner in so much.
Oh, it was amazing, man.
He's been the puppet master of so much of music history.
His records were my first venture into independence.
Yeah.
You know, it's on record on this interview.
Yeah.
You know, Yo Bum Rush the Show.
Yeah.
Run DMC records. Raising Hell. You know, his work with the Def Jam label was the original defining moment for me as a person through music. Yeah. Where I wasn't following, like I said, someone else's records, my brother's collection or whatever. Rick Rubin was my entry point. Yeah. So to be sitting opposite him in Malibu and Shangri-La and be able to talk through his life. I mean, every single bit of that interview got used because I actually got to it at the end of an hour, and I was shocked that it was done in my head. I couldn't really think of anything else at the time to ask him. Yeah. And I was embarrassed privately because I was like, I should have weeks of things I want to ask him. Yeah. Why have I come to an hour and I'm ending this? Yeah. I'm ending this. No one's calling time.
Yeah, so that's that.
And I realized that it's because he's such a concise communicator.
Yeah.
And he's in rhythm. Yeah. His whole life now, it seems, is about finding the rhythm, the right energy of just being in flow, even flow, right? Just everything is just, and there wasn't any kind of anxious energy there.
Yeah,
I just felt totally at peace and relaxed.
Concise, putting you at ease, answering every question
perfectly.
Yeah,
he's to this day remains the nicest guy to ever contradict you.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, actually, no, that's not how it happened at all. But the thing is, and you don't feel remotely offended by it. You're just wonderful. Like, great, tell me how it went.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Thank you for clearing that up. You know, but at the same time, you realize he's a punk rocker, and you realize he's a
Yeah.
He's a promoter, and he's still the same guy that got his dad to come to the venue and pretend to arrest, the band for, whatever, when they were kids. And, he's the wrestling fan, he's still that guy. And I just love the contradictions of his journey that have somehow melded into this beautiful perfection. And
it's beautiful that you got to give someone like that the same, treatment and exposure of your Kanye and Jade. It was in these long form interviews.
He was the dream,
the people that know, like yourself, or the people who he would have influenced, he's the biggest in the world. But for the people who've tuned into a lot of the other interviews, a lot of them wouldn't have known until they get that conversation. They get that.
Well, fair play to Radio 1.
He did this. He did this. He did
fair
this.
Fair play to BBC. I mean, we'd followed on. 100%. We'd followed on from Jay-Z, Kanye, Eminem, and then I said I want to do Rick Rubin. They're like, well, I would imagine them to go, well, look, Pharrell, Coldplay, Adele, what's going on here,
Yeah.
And I said, I just think Rick Rubin's the right guy.
That's amazing.
Because it gets us away from you're never going to get a bigger rapper right now, so we need to get away from the hip-hop industry because it's just, people are thinking it's just a rap scene.
Everyone you've got...
But he's a connector between all the types of music, And they were like, if you can get him, do it. And they were just 100% behind it. And when he said yes, I was flipping out, man. I couldn't believe this.
Amazing.
And then Chris said yes. And so we were out there and we did both of them 2 days in a row.
That's perfect.
It was awesome.
Another thing I wanted to talk about, we'll start to wrap up at some point soon, I promise. But
I'm loving it.
Getting to do, how great has it been for you to get to do the Masterpieces shows each... Is it 4 each year?
We did. We stopped. I think last year was the first year we didn't do it, and we wrapped it up because there was an album that, you sort of get to a point where you're looking around and you sort of feel, am I starting to overstate the importance of a record?
Yeah,
because we need to do this as a series.
Yeah.
And one of the things we always agreed was that if we're forcing it, let's not do it.
I agree with that.
Because you don't want to have to convince people that this is a masterpiece just because you need a fourth.
Yeah.
Because 3 are genuine and 1 is like, well, I think it is, but you might not, and blah, blah, blah.
What were your kind of criteria for that? Because I'd imagine there's certain things that are a masterpiece to you and in your life and in your experience, but you can probably concede doesn't apply to the rest of the world. How hard was it to choose these specific albums that hopefully universally can be agreed upon?
It changed. Initially, it was sort of more in line with the 100 greatest albums of all time. So you would have, your Queen is Dead, you would have your Oasis, or you'll have your kind of Radiohead, OK Computer, and Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon kind of thing. But then as it progressed on and we wanted to get more creative with it, we started to make them more kind of in line with what we thought our audience would consider masterpieces and take a few more risks. And that's where things like Original Pirate Material started to make its Siamese Dream. Yeah. It Takes a Nation of Millions, which granted it is on the 100 greatest albums of all time list, but records that we just thought would be kind of more in line with what we're trying to do. White Stripes, Elephant, Arcade Fire, Neon Bible.
Yeah.
And it just became more of the show's identity and less about kind of everyone else's lists.
Yeah,
and it was a really fun thing to do.
Because it feels like that was the only show that could have had such a broad range of what is a masterpiece. It's not the masterpieces on the rock show or on the rap show or on anything else. It's saying, look, these
across the board, across
genres, these are amazing.
Well, so to me, records. If you listen to people nowadays, a lot of the kind of pundits and the writers and the bloggers and a lot of people saying, the era of the album is over, and I can understand the philosophy, which is that playlist culture necessitates that ultimately a music by design, by artistic design, in an order unto which they want you to listen to it, doesn't have the same relevance anymore because people just are taking the choice back. Yeah. I disagree with that in one sense because I think albums will always exist because artists want to make them. And people always seem to forget that it's not really about whether an audience want them. It's the fact that when you sit down to make music as an artist, you want to actually spend your time doing it and you want to say something over the course of a fair amount of time. Yeah, and singles and EPs are ultimately quite an unfulfilling process. Yeah. I think they are. I think that's been a real issue with the whole dance music rise, is the fact that it's just a currency of singles, and you have artists that are now headlining festivals in front of 150,000 people with effectively 2 singles. I'm not hating on that because they're great singles and ride that wave to shore. Completely. But ultimately, unless you're going to invest, like Disclosure have done, and various other artists in albums, whether they sell or not, it's a statement. It's a statement that I have music and a lot of it that I want to play you, and I want to give you an idea of who I am as an individual or as a band or an artist or whatever. So I felt with Masterpieces like we were just trying to invest in the album as it's, everyone just stop. There's a lot of noise, a lot of pace. Everyone just stop. Just appreciate it for what it is. Yeah. And I haven't decided yet whether or not we've contributed something small towards maintaining that or whether it was the last dance.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's going to be an interesting one to pan out and see, right? Did you feel there was a time limit on how new an album could be to be in the Masterpieces list?
That conversation came up a couple of times.
Was probably the most recent of the ones you covered, right?
Yeah, that was. Although at the time, I think whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. I'd only been out for like 2 or 3 years when we did that. Yeah. And I mean, we did get some grief for that. Like, how could it be a masterpiece? It's only 2-3 years old. It's like, well, because you listen to it and you just know it's still a fucking amazing record. It became playful, you know. In the end, we just stopped being so worried about whether or not it qualified in this crazy criteria, and it was more just like, is it a dope record? Yeah. Is it a great record? Yeah. Is it really hard to fault? Yeah. Is it still exciting? Yeah. Can we justify calling it a masterpiece? Yeah. You know, and it just became like, can we actually almost make masterpieces? Yeah. You know what I mean? As opposed to that.
It's huge credit to Radio 1, because getting to slow everyone down in radio at that point and put such a focus on an individual album and then having that heard so much. I remember the Public Enemy one clearly because it's before a gig and I was in a fish and chip shop and it was taking ages and I was just in heaven because I'm standing in a fish and chip shop.
Well, it was playing in the fish and chip shop.
So I'm standing in a fish and chip shop and I'm hearing a breakdown
I've never thought about
of Public Enemy.
I've never thought about actually It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, or original pirate material uncensored, being played in a bar.
In public, yeah.
I always just thought it was a private experience.
Going into such detail and such intricacy and such passion, but this is just being heard by anyone. It's not just a location.
Yeah, I never, ever, ever contextualized it that way, and now I think about it, it must have sounded amazing while you're waiting for your fritters.
It was crazy, and that was some good chips too, man.
Louder than a bomb while you're waiting for your fritters.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to let you get on now. I guess we should round up with what's kind of the future hold. What's the move forward? Obviously, you've been doing some production over recent years.
And a big thing for me, man.
Getting into the studio.
Getting back in the studio has been a huge thing for me in terms of just getting on the other side of that sort of room, going to that corner. Yeah. You know, I talk about the corners and going, well, hang on, you know, I want to go back to that corner, and I've got
everyone in my corner, but now I'm kind of interested in why the hell that guy isn't in my corner.
Well, just starting again and just like going in somewhere and having people raise one eyebrow and go, really, you make music? And just kind of having to sort of like trying to let the music do the work. And
again, the beautiful surprise, right?
Well, I just woke up.
No, I got this in my locker as well.
Well, I just woke up this morning and Sam Smith's just made a video for Restart, the song that we co-wrote together and I produced, you know, and I'm like, wow, that's just gone online. That's awesome. That's a video for that now. That's great. And I just had no idea that he was going to, you know, that was going to come today. And just, dude, what I've gotten from there is just, like I said, I've always just wanted to be close to music. And as corny as that sounds, and it's very easy. I know I'm a real easy target for people who are like, why do you have to be so over enthusiastic? It's frustrating. It's in my face. It goes against my natural instincts, which are to just play it cool. And why can't you just play it cool? Just play it cool. And I might actually like what you do. Just fucking play it cool. You know, and I can't do it because music gives me this giddy enthusiasm. It makes me feel a certain way. And going into the studio and collaborating with these amazing talents and learning so much about that just means, unfortunately, for those detractors, when I go on the air, I'm even giddier. Yeah. I'm even more connected. I'm even more in place.
And the beauty of it is that's exactly why you've achieved everything that you've achieved, because the people that are sitting home, any detractors that are sitting home saying this, playing it cool, are probably playing it too cool to become Jay-Z or to become Kanye, to become Eminem. So Eminem, all of these people, they're the ones that see your excitement, and that's mirrored in them. They're music fans. They're passionate people.
That's fine if you're cool, and believe me, there are people who are just naturally cool. I'm not, and never have been. And my wife will tell you over and over again that I am just not cool. And what I am, though, is I'm enthusiastic and passionate about music. And you know, I have to say also, let's not forget that, you know, that venture back into making music, which I hadn't done for a long time, started with you.
Damn right.
You were the first guy to say, hey, give me a beat. Yeah. And it was a torturous process.
Yeah. I'm that guy.
But I loved it because you taught me so much about following the artistic vision of the artist. Yeah. adapting your own ideas into a place where everyone can feel like it's a thing, and patience and ultimate reward. And I got that ultimate reward when I saw you perform that song live at Festival. It was one of the proudest moments of my creative life. And you were the first dude to put me on. You were like, oh, you make beats because you did the Scroobius Pip and Down the Sack remix? Chuck me one. In fact, I think I invited myself to your wedding. I think I said, like, hey, man, can I send you some beats? And you took one, you know, and that was from there. That's where it started. So thank you, man.
It was amazing.
Thank you.
And it was a great, again, it came from exactly that, us talking off air and privately just about music, about a love of music and passion for that. So it's kind of...
Well, that makes sense that you would make music because you like it like I do, and you know. Exactly. And the reason we're sitting here today, and it's been such a joy hanging out talking, man, and believe me, I don't do this very often because, you know, I don't often think that anything I could say about what I've been through would be remotely interesting. But when I think about talking to you, I know I'm going to be interested. So,
perfect.
Man,
it's very much appreciated.
Dude, you're going to smash it with these things, you know.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. And, on to the next thing.
Yeah, man, why haven't you asked me to make beats on the next record?
Send me a beat.
Too busy hanging out with Travis Barker, y'all. Too busy hanging out with Hollywood superstars, y'all. You've changed, Scroob. You've changed.
Done. We out.
Don't believe the hype machine. Death of the journalist. Don't believe the hype machine. Don't believe the hype machine.
We provide survival news for kids.
Don't believe the hype machine. Death of the journalist.
To help you overcome any fear of the future.
Don't believe the...
There we have it. That was episode 2. We're a thing now. It's done. We've done 2. That's not just a one-off. That's a thing. We're a series. Hope you enjoyed that. I loved getting to go and talk to Zane. I went round and sat in his living room, and it was so relaxed and so nice, and seeing him enthuse over music and just the bit that got me was him just reciting rap lyrics from like 25 years ago, and it's beautiful. Hopefully that all came across, his passion for music, and yeah, he's a good guy. I like him. But on next week's podcast we've got Alan Moore, which is hugely exciting for me. And I mentioned at the beginning of the show the overwhelming reaction to the announcement of the podcasts, and that was one that the reaction to Alan Moore's name being on there was one that hugely excited me, because he was a bit of a wild card in this. Obviously I was excited when I confirmed the booking, but he's not really got an internet presence, so I didn't really know. Obviously with people like Russell Brand and Zane Lowe, I know they can tweet about it and push it out there to their fan base, but for Alan I didn't really know. But the reaction has been amazing. I was worried it was going to be one that is just purely for me and that I'm just going to nerd out over and then play for people in my car if I'm ever giving them a lift anywhere and force it upon people. But it seems that you are rather excited about that one too. I've mentioned all the reaction. Feel free to hit me up at any point at Scroobius Pip